Sorry?
I'm not part of the panel afterwards.
Okay, sure. So, let me now invite our panelists. So, Mr. George Agafitei, please join me on the stage. Mr. Agafitei is Director of Regulatory and Institutional Affairs at PPC Romania. He leads the regulatory and institutional affairs of PPC, bringing extensive experience from both the private and public sector. Over the past decade, he has held several senior advisory roles within the Romanian government, including positions at the Prime Minister's Office, the Ministry of Economy, and the Ministry of National Defense. Today, he plays a key role in shaping regulatory and public affairs strategy within one of Romania's leading energy companies. So welcome. Nice to see you this afternoon. Well, next panelist, Mr. Vladimir Kubecek. He's the Head of Strategy, Management and Business Development at ČEPS. Please welcome.
Hello.
Vladimir is an energy economist with more than 25 years of experience across international organizations, academia, finance, and the energy industry. He currently leads strategy management and business development at ČEPS, the Czech transmission system operator. Prior to joining ČEPS, he spent nearly 6 years at the International Energy Agency in Paris, where he headed the coal, electricity, and renewable statistics section. His expertise spans energy markets, system planning, and strategic development across the European power sector. Welcome.
Hello.
Mr. Florin Stanciu, please come and join us. He's the head of corporate finance in Transelectrica, Romania's electricity transmission and system operator, where he has led the company's financial strategy since 2013. With more than 25 years of experience in the energy sector and capital markets, he has played a key role in financing critical power infrastructure and strategic cross-border energy projects. He also serves as a Deputy General Director of the Green Energy Corridor Initiative, one of the region's most important electricity interconnection projects. Welcome, and thank you for coming. Mr. Charles Esser, please join us as well. Mr. Esser is the Secretary General at the E.DSO. Am I pronouncing right?
Yes, that's fine. Yes.
The voice of the Europe's electricity distribution system operators. With a career spanning energy regulation, international energy markets, economic analysis, and energy diplomacy, he has worked across the public, private, and non-profit sector. His expertise covers electricity and natural gas markets, energy policy, and strategic challenges shaping Europe's energy transition. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Mr. Istvan Pocs. Mr. Pocs is the director of Hungarian Renewable Energy Association. He's a senior energy professional with more than 20 years of experience, spanning both the conventional and renewable energy sector. As a director of Hungarian Renewable Energy Association and vice president of the energy section of the Association of Hungarian Enterprises, he has played an active role in advancing geothermal wind energy development, supporting Hungarian clean energy transition. Thank you for coming. So we did promise you an excellent panel, so thank you, gentlemen. And well, building from the perspective of financial issue, also on the perspective of climate change. I think the discussion will naturally move now towards the system, towards the grid that will have to absorb all these shocks or all this information, all the pressures. So what we are going to discuss today is not just infrastructure, it's the backbone actually of decarbonization, competitiveness, and energy security in the region. So without you, gentlemen, without the grid, without your expertise, we will not be able to function. So what I would like today is to go beyond general statements and really focus on your own experience and your own clear case studies. So let's do some reality check, if I may, and think about the current bottlenecks and grid capacity. I'll start with Mr. Stanciu, Transelectrica. I know that you have rather a financial perspective on this subject. So from your perspective, what are the most immediate physical and infrastructure bottlenecks you are facing when you are trying to integrate the volume of utility scale renewables needed for 2030 and beyond? What's the budget? What's the figure?
Okay, thank you, Roxana. I would start with the fact that congestions represent a fundamental issue for energy system in Romania. Just let's consider that, for instance, the national system was built years ago, and it was planned to have thermal generation with a clear dispatching prediction. Now we are living in a total different reality. I mean, the thermal generation should be closed very soon, and what is remaining are renewables. And here we do have some asymmetries. The generation is in the southeast of Romania, where the wind is blowing, or on the southeast of Romania when it's sun, and the consumption is in another regions, which means that we do not have yet the enough capacity to export the energy produced in these areas towards the other areas. So at the end of the day, of course, we have congestions. So Transelectrica right now is going through a fundamental process of transformation. We do have about, I think, more than 2 billion euros over the next 10 years for the CapEx, as a CapEx program, in order to increase the capacity to export the energy from those areas, and on the same token to increase the cross-border capacity with the neighboring countries. Hope I answered your question.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kubecek, we've heard a local Romanian reality. What's your view on this?
Well, I will start a little bit more general, but don't worry, I will get to particularities. First of all, what is important to note is we are regulated and heavily regulated companies. We can do only what is allowed us to do by the law. We cannot do more or differently, and that's sometimes a little bit of issue, because normally we should act only based on the request for connection. That means that there is a real demand for connection, and then it means, okay, we talk with a regulator and we can start construction. Well, here is the first problem. Lead time for developing renewable projects with all the permitting is anything between 3 to 7 years. Developing infrastructure project is, well, pretty much 7 to 15. And so there is this problem. Okay, it's being solved. We are discussing a lot of the anticipatory investment, which is being implemented into legislation, but it's not usually so fast. We are lagging behind that. So we try to find a different way. And then we see the first two issues. First is the queue management for the connection request. We see a lot of connection requests which are not really backed by real projects. There is a lot of speculation on this. Okay, well, everybody's right. But unfortunately, again, based on the law, we need to treat them all the same way. So, again, we need to solve this. And that means discussion between us, both TSOs and DSOs. It means discussion with the regulator, with the government, and also with the project developers, and to find some solution. Okay, there are possibilities how to do it. We can do different two-stage approvals. We can talk about the flexible connection contracts, etc. But again, everything needs to be already in the legislation or in the code, and that takes time because it's a process. So these are things which are more like legal-based and the general structure. Then there is also, of course, technical issues. First, on our side, it's the capacity, transformation capacities. Okay, there is a lot of connection requests. Some transformers are simply reaching their technical limits. We need more investment. Okay, we can do it. It's doable. We know how to do it. The problem is, every TSO and DSO decided we need to invest now. And it's not only here in Europe, it's in Middle East, it's in Asia, it's in the US, and there are limited capacities. And our suppliers, if you go to market and ask, okay, I want a transformer, well, okay. For the small one, there are, it's a little bit more flexible. For our, the 400 kilovolts, it's a little bit more complicated. If you are not in the line, it's a problem. And again, it means pretty much increased price. That's one part. The second is also a little bit of procurement rules, public procurement rules. If we need to go through the very complicated processes, it's public procurement, and it means good 1 year discussions, and usually we end up after the procurement with the anti-monopoly office dealing all these issues. So it takes again time. And that's just a real experience, So for us, we spend 6 to 8 months just procuring, then we spend the same amount of time dealing with on legal basis. And all this happens. So, of course, we are trying to help, and we are, for us, all this, it's not that we don't want to do it. Most, if you talk, we try to do it as much as possible, but simply we are constrained. But it's being solved. We discuss with the regulator, we discuss with the project developers. We try to find new ways how to do it. So here we have cable pooling, because it helps. We also try now to negotiate with the existing customers whether they really need so much connecting capacity. We are pushing or discussing with the regulator in Czech Republic on a new tariff structure, which then will motivate to utilize the contracted capacity as efficiently as possible, which means probably decreasing them, giving space to other one. So, yeah, I know it takes time. It's frustrating. It's frustrating for everybody, and of course there is also the last thing. As I said, we are on the peak of our investment program. We quadrupled our investment over the last 4 years, and it means we also need people, and they are not available as well. So because everybody is doing the same. So we try to solve as much with the digitalization, with automatization, with standardization on all sides. But we are just one part of the value chain. If we are fully digitalized, but the permitting offices are not digitalized, okay, well, what we do, we print out all the papers and bring it there.
Yeah. So the speed of move depends on other actors in the sector.
Yeah, it depends on everybody. Everybody's trying, but I think it's improving. we need to think really, out of the box, because it's everybody's problem. But also there is this affordability issue that, and that's probably the last thing, we are increasing investment. Our regulatory asset base goes up. But in fact, the real electrification, despite it's happening in percentage numbers, it's not happening in physical numbers. Mm-hmm. The EU has a flat consumption, in fact, decreasing consumption of electricity over the last 10, 15 years. So every increased investment means everybody needs to pay more for the grid services, and that's not something what's acceptable. So what we really, and I believe that's what really would help, is let's have real electrification programs, which means that the consumption will increase. Then everything will be much, much easier, because we will not see the increase, but really the better services. That was my take.
Okay, thank you. I'm not an energy professional, I'm rather a sustainability professional, and I wanted to thank you for raising the issue of the workforce, because I wanted to conclude that for you too, probably the workforce of tomorrow will have to be very good on regulatory affairs. You will need a very strong regulatory affairs department, and we'll come to Mr. Agafitei in time. Then you need very good negotiator, because you just mentioned that you have to put in motion a lot of parties, and this involves a lot of discussion, persuasion, negotiation, and so on. And you also mentioned supply chain issues, so this is the third skill that you would need for the future.
Roxana, it seems that Vladimir is working in Transelectrica because he's facing the same problem.
Yes. Okay, so speaking about public affairs, so we have Mr. Agafitei representing a utility provider, then we have Mr. Pocs representing more, it's an association, so you're speaking on behalf of more voices. And I would like to ask you, so from the utility and developer side, how severe are the current delays for grid connection permits, and what is the real-world impact on project financing and deployment timelines?
I don't know, listening to my colleague, I don't know if I should be happy or sad that other countries have the same problems as us, first of all. But it seems that there's an underlying problematic that is all over Europe, in all the countries, because grids are all over the place. Connection queues are huge all over the place, so we are all facing the same problem. I was thinking that 5 years ago, when we were talking about grids, nobody paid attention. We were like the Cinderella of the energy sector, and we were keep yelling, "You're not going to get the benefits of the green energy if you don't do the grids." Well, unfortunately, we were right. So, if we really want to benefit from the energy transition, if you want to see that green electron coming into our houses, we need to enforce the grids. We have, as we speak, 27 regulators with 27 local problematics, which are political, social, environmental, and so on. And we have one European vision which needs to be implemented somehow in 27 local authorities. So I believe that we need a fundamental shift in the philosophy to which we approach this problem. We cannot be reactive, we have to be proactive. We have to understand that waiting for each country to implement the regulations in its own terms and time might result in an energy market which will be more fragmented than it is today. So if we really want to reach an energy union, we should see how we can draw the macro projects that we want to see across all the countries. And I'm happy that we have here a representative from the E.DSO, because he has a broader picture than me, and when talking about this. So coming back to the beginning of your presentation, you were talking about resilience, and I want to tell you about something that we are facing as we speak in regards to the investment in the grids, especially in this neck of the woods, which is Eastern Europe. Cyber attacks. There is a huge amount of cyber attacks that we as grid operators face every single day. The costs in deterring these attacks are increasing as we speak, and we are still struggling to convince the regulator that we need to invest more in cybersecurity. So there is a huge gap between the realities in the market and the philosophy with which we regulate. So sometimes we have to meet in the middle. It's true that if we increase investments, we will increase tariffs on the short term, but on the long term, I'm sure that the benefits of the green energy that we produce should be transposed to the end consumer. So if you talk about resilience, you have to talk about preparedness, you have to talk about capacity to react, and to have to talk about capacity to recover. So all of those things have to be the underlying philosophy of the regulation and the legislation in order to unlock the private sector to use its full potential and invest the capital that we need to do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Just I want to admit a bit because the Renewable Energy, Hungarian Renewable Energy Association, it's a bit modest title because all of the big guys, all of the big companies are our funding fathers. So the MOL, the National Electricity Company, E.ON, and so on. Also the DSOs are part of our board. The TSO is regularly invited to our board meetings. The Energy Office, Hungarian Energy Office, is regularly invited to our decisions, and we always trying to create an environment for a cooperation, for interaction, and this is for sure there are no silver bullets, yeah. But what we're trying to do to integrate the different interests and different aspects, also both developers and both the TSOs and DSOs aspects. And for that reason, you know, it's changed for us. It was a really good time as the Renewable Energy Association. Even the banks are our members now, the big ones. And we several times try to shape the, let's say, the narrative, because at the very beginning we started with okay, connection request. The TSO need to give us connections. There will be constraints in the connection. So we started to do in a more smarter way. In every weekend I going to my summer house at M6 motorway. It's a really nice motorway. It's beautifully built. It's totally empty, and for sure, for me, it's really good because I can go fast. And imagine it is the PV asset. Hungary is having more than 8 gigawatt of PV assets, and we're utilizing the grid for $1,200. And the TSO and the DSOs built a really big infrastructure for that. So for that reason, at very first, we emphasized the importance to better, more efficiently utilize the existing grid. Not just saying to the market that, okay, connect some storage, which is not enough because the market will be really slow. So as a Renewable Energy Association, with the back of the Energy Office, we provided, with an industrial consensus, a template for the co-location agreements, which now it's all the markets start to use. So it is downloadable in the Energy Office website, so the market utilize it and go much faster, so can utilize much better the grid. Now there will be a new capacity tender, and the government, the new one, asked us to provide the voice of the market. So where are the projects are staying? And you need to be, and you need to be not just a developer and a cowboy, because you have to provide the real information, because it will be counted later. So now they are supporting the government with the new screening system. Therefore, the E.DSO, the government, the policymakers can program the investments, because now we are really back up with the wind. So it will be not a big surprise that most of the capacities will be given for the wind, but it is a good thing that we overutilize the grid for solar. We didn't spend a single investment because of the former policy for wind, and now these are really supporting each other. So now we again increasing the grid utilization, just because we are allowing new capacities which supporting each other. And for sure, the congestion management and the flexible utilization, the new contractual mechanism will help not to overinvest to the grid. I don't say, we know we are happy because we are receiving a lot of money from the European Union after the change in the government. So, and most of the money for the renewables will go for the grid reinforcement and so on. But at very first, start to cooperate, start to talk to each other, the different partners, and let's take the low-hanging fruit first, because that's the cheapest, and that's the cheapest for the public, and that's the sustainable thing. Not like me, who was going to my summer house in every weekend. Okay.
Highway, yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. I think I get from you a positive vibe somehow that Hungary is now, at least for this sector I'm talking, in a better position, and things are kind of falling into places in a better way than before, right? So
I have big hopes.
Yeah, good. So, Mr. Esser, let's move to Brussels. Everything comes from Brussels. We are fighting with Brussels. We support Brussels. So, and from your position, how does the CEE region grid's readiness compare to Western Europe? I know that you don't necessarily like this kind of comparison. So,
thank you very much. Just a bit about E.DSO. I mean, we're an association of 35 large and some medium-sized electricity distribution system operators. So we're in this region, for example, Romania, Delgaz Grid, 3 E.ON-owned DSOs in Hungary, or 2 in Slovakia, all 3 DSOs in Czechia are our members, and DSO in Greece, and so on, 2 DSOs in Bulgaria. And so we're quite present in the region, but at the same time, we are larger DSOs. So the DSO sector is more heterogeneous than the TSO sector. I mean, there are about over 2,600 some DSOs in Europe. So you think, well, why are we just 35 plus a couple of national associations? Well, with our 35 DSOs, we're about 65% of the customers. So that tells you that there must be a lot of really small DSOs in Europe. And that itself can be an issue. And I think that we were discussing before, a little bit before the panel, how do you compare indeed Central and Eastern Europe to Western Europe? Where do they end? I mean, is it Austria? Are we talking about Estonia? They're very different situations. And so, but there's also a lot of differences between small and large DSOs in terms of the capacity. Some of our members have artificial intelligence teams where you can do that when you have 30 million customers. That's really easy. If you have 20,000, you're probably not going to have an artificial intelligence team in your DSO. So there's a lot of difference there. I would say, though, all those caveats being said, there are some things we can maybe make some generalizations about in terms of maybe infrastructure age, legacy of centralization, risk profiles. Though even there, I can say, for example, there was a change of revenue and regulation in Finland, and their risk profile went up. So it's again not just, these are generalizations. There can be an investment gap because there's a backlog of modernization. But then again, a lot of grids in Western Europe are also old and need new investment. There's an issue which I think TSO counterparts here on the panel will be able to speak to much better than me of lack of interconnection. But again, that's I think that there are people on this panel who can better speak to that than me. We also mentioned the cybersecurity threat, but there can be asymmetric threats. Our members in Poland or in the Baltics have to spend money on physical security threats. That, I was talking to a member in Portugal, and he said, "Well, that's just, we don't think about that." So these are some differences. On the other side, we heard about the EU money. I would say that the governments here for sure, but also the regulators are more open, and the regulatory framework is more open to getting EU money. In many Western European countries, the EU money, if you get the EU funding, there's no point to it. The regulator just take it away in the end. So that can be a positive, but given the need for investment, it may not be able to fully bridge the needs. So I would say those are some of the points I would make. Also, there's smart metering, which I know you want to talk to a bit about later. But again, I think that the smart metering perspective also varies a lot in the region. So it's hard to say, if you look at my country, Belgium, or you look at Germany, the smart metering, there are countries in this region that have a higher smart metering rate. So one should be careful. I also think as an association, we very much have a perspective of learning from each other, and we have definitely found that the learning goes in both directions. It's not about somehow Western European DSOs giving showing DSOs in this region how the proper way to do things. That's absolutely not how our association works. And so we all have things to learn from each other. There are specific challenges in this region, and associations like ours help each other to face these challenges and learn. Thank you.
Thank you too. Mr. Kubecek, you were talking about building networks, using collaboration and so on, but beyond the wires, what is there? Are you looking at dynamic line rating? Are you looking at wide area measurement systems, digital twins, things like this? Was there any impact coming from these types of technologies on your business?
Well, of course. It's like, if I review our project base, of course we have the building and renewal of our lines, operating of existing substations, etc. But most of them are about digitalization. We are heavily involved in managing the cross-border trading with ancillary services, etc. So these are parts which we are already fully digitalized, and we are, harvesting the cooperation between within the region. But yeah, artificial intelligence, there is a big potential we are looking at, especially again in the permitting process. That's one use case which we are developing. That how to use AI within the permitting process. Then of course we are using a lot of AI in tools on prediction of the imbalances and flows, etc. So cybersecurity, it was already mentioned. Yeah, that's a big issue, And again, there is a big discussion, especially in connection with the with renewables or in general with power electronics. You know, how to deal with it. You know, there is China as a key supplier of these technologies, and we need to have some rules, and these are still being discussed. We are part of this discussion, and that's it. Physical security, again, the drone attacks on our infrastructure, how to deal with it. Using the drones as a monitoring for our services. Yes, there are pilots, and we are already using it. Again, there are some issues that, for the moment, using drone in Czech Republic is almost as expensive as using the helicopter, but regulation needs to change. So there is all these things. So yeah, we are digitalization is important, and we are trying to optimize our flows, because otherwise it's not going to happen. There is a big problem, of course, on our asset digitalization. So, from the planning through engineering, asset management, all digitalized flows through the system. But again, it needs people, and extremely skilled people.
Yeah.
And,
I did on the list cybersecurity experts.
Yeah.
So we are building the transmission sector of tomorrow. So it's about wire, about system, but it's also about people. So we need the perfect team. Okay, I was just checking if there are any online questions. So I encourage you to address them. I'll ask Mr. Agafitei. As a major utility, we've heard a lot of projects from your colleagues during these 2 days. So you're really investing a lot. So how critical is the deployment of utility-scale battery storage, for example, to manage your portfolio grid impact?
It's true. We have been investing in the last 3 years more than 3 billion euros in Romania, and our investment plan for the next 3 years is at least 1 billion a year. So we are heavily invested in Romania. In regards to the batteries, I think they are a no-brainer. And we see that the costs have dropped more than 50% since 2022. And just the other day, I was looking in the news, and I saw that in Australia, batteries have actually replaced gas in peak shaving for the energy demand. So, I mean, you would have to be a fool not to invest in batteries today if you are investing in energy projects. And more than that, if 1 or 2 years ago the need for continuous supply power like nuclear and gas was, of course, on everybody's lips, now we start to wonder how much of a business case can we make for the band supply energy for the gas and the nuclear, because if battery keep decreasing at this rate, it will be cheaper and cheaper, and you can deploy them faster and faster. So what we are seeing that is happening with the batteries has happened in the solar industry also, with the price of the PVs. Not so much in the wind, but okay, we had some decrease in costs there, so they will be ubiquitous. Everybody will have batteries, and they're a huge part of our investment plan, because as I was telling you, they will displace a lot of gas from the energy mix. And if you look at countries that have a high presence of gas in the energy mix, they also have a high price. Because if you tie yourself to gas, then you will tie yourself to the international market, and we see that it's a crazy show today. And I mean, it's about time that we learn from the second energy crisis that we have been living in, 2-3 years now, since the Ukraine war started and now the Hormuz. We have to reduce our dependencies. If we talk about resilience, And reducing our dependencies in Europe means electrification in any which means or ways we can do that.
Okay, thank you. So my entire, let's say, professional life, as a sustainability professional, I had to ask for money, for different projects, and there was always the question, okay, what's the rate of return? What's in it for me? So I'm going to go to Mr. Stanciu, because I have to ask you, grid modernization requires billions of capex. So in your view, what are the most viable financing solutions right now for your company or for the region?
Good question. Well, I mentioned earlier that we have a CAPEX program for about 2 billion over the next 10 years. So if I look at the list of the projects, Transelectrica has about, I think, 100 projects, ranging from 5 million to 200 million euro investment. If we look how we're going to finance that, mostly will come from equity, as we expect. Then we will enjoy some CEF funding, modernization fund. And the financing gap, we are considering IFIs. We already discussed, we have pre-arrangement with the IFIs in Europe. If not enough, we considering green bonds. Already started discussion with several companies in this respect, just to contemplate whether it is appropriate or not. Appropriate about the profile we deploy the money. Because Transelectrica, just to give you a rough example, any let's say significant project, it takes years. At between 5 to 10 years projects. So you need to deploy money over the 10 years time frame. And what happens? It happens that the cash flow is somewhere at the end of the project when the equipment is coming on the place. Then you need to be available with funds in that period to fund the project. So basically, we do not have any issue in this respect, because if we look at the figures, Transelectrica is one of the less leveraged DSO in Europe. In fact, we have net debt, as we say. We have a lazy balance sheet. We stay on a pile of cash for the time being. But let's see how the future is going.
Okay, thank you. I'm very cautious about the time. I know that we were very good, but we just inherited half an hour delay from the previous panelist. And I know that some of you will have to travel to the airport very soon. So I'll just want to ask you one flash question to all of you. The CEE region is highly interconnected, but historically reliant on specific energy corridors. In your view, how critical is enhancing cross-border interconnection for ensuring regional energy security when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing? So I'll start with you.
Look, the interconnectors is a must-have thing. So we definitely need to work over that, because it not just creates opportunity to manage congestions, but it also gives liquidity to the markets. And if the markets are liquid, then the electricity is usually cheap on long term.
Okay.
Yeah. True, the sun might not shine in Romania, but it might shine in Greece. So electric interconnectivity is a must, especially if we take into account that we have to integrate Moldova and Ukraine into the European grid. So we have to strengthen our interconnectivity and follow those power corridors that Brussels is talking about, for sure.
No, I think it's a necessity, absolutely. Nobody's having any doubts about it. On the other hand, it's also important to say that this region is deficient in capacity, and these things needs to go hand in hand. Capacity building plus interconnection.
Well, I would add that it will help at balancing as well. And in our case, we need to triple the NTC capacity with the neighboring countries until 2030, which is important.
As a DSO, of course, we're not as much in the interconnector sphere, though there are a couple of smart grids PCI projects that are interconnecting, for example, between Germany and Czechia, or here in Romania, there's one called Carmen. I would say, though, going back, and I agree with everything that my counterparts here in the panel have said, if there's one thing I would bring up, though, it's the regulation and thinking about how are we going to, yes, we need to build, and the message I always put forth is we need to invest in copper, if you want to put it that way, but we also need a regulatory framework that allows us to do all these things, like, for example, cybersecurity, and allows us to be remunerated. I think there's still a lot of heterogeneity in Europe about the regulatory frameworks to treat OPEX and CAPEX that needs to be resolved so that we can really allow us, our members, the companies here in the panel, who know best what's going to optimize. You put the incentive in by the regulator, and you don't have a CAPEX bias, and allow us to really choose the least cost solutions. So yes, there's that, and then agree about the capacity. It's also capacity on skills. I remember in Greece, just to point out, looking at, dealing with skills, finally they were so, frustrated by the lack of skills that they had to create their own master's degree program. Just because they just couldn't get the employees that they needed. And so there's a skills gap that needs to be addressed. And finally, yes, there's the components issue. And there's a lot of discussion now in Brussels about, made in Europe and how much, should we be dependent on imported Chinese equipment and things like this. So this is something we're still discussing internally, but there's the ongoing investigation on grain-oriented electrical steel, which has been issued, which is now a topic in Brussels. These kinds of issues about our capability to produce it here in Europe are also vital. I was talking to one of the equipment manufacturers, and he said to me, "Well, I have such back orders now. This is a lovely problem that I have." So. These are all issues and finally I would say on the connection queues, this is something the Commission, bringing a bit of Brussels perspective, issued a guidance on. But now we see in the permitting directive that some MEPs have actually proposed European legislation on how to best handle grid connection queues. Of course, that would be in a directive, and we'll see if it actually makes it through the Council and the Parliament. It may not. But if it does, that would mean that you're going to have, at least in directives that will still have to be transposed, some kind of push from Brussels on connection queues. From our perspective, the first come, first serve is no longer sufficient. And we need to move on from that into something that gives some kind of prioritization that optimizes things for the grid, for the consumers, that gets rid of zombie projects, etc., etc. So these are the kind of things I'd point out to final.
Also, I think we should, building on what you said about CAPEX and OPEX, I think we should move to a TOTEX model. I mean, why don't we let the distributor decide how to handle the money and the efficiencies targets, of course, being imposed by the regulator, and then we will move forward within the framework that is set. Yeah,
in many cases, our members do, in certain regulatory frameworks for certain DSOs, they prefer to just call it a balanced CAPEX OPEX model because of some particularities in the regulatory framework, but in many cases, in certain regulatory frameworks, indeed, where our members are in favor of a TOTEX approach.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And in order to be balanced, I'll also ask the question from the public, and I'll invite you to respond, whoever feels more comfortable to address it. How to turn the age of the BESS from a self-cannibalizing speculation wave into an enabler of the zero-ready grid, smart use of MMESZ for grid forming and reducing grid congestion. Anyone more?
Talking about storage, BSS?
BESS.
Yeah, okay. So my understanding is that this cannibalization fear is not really fundamentally based, because all of the analysis, which, let's say, in the German market I just read, so if and then Germany will build 80 gigawatt of capacity, which actually the European target, then the revenues will drop to 30%. That was the ending of I think this was Aurora analysis or whatever. But come on, the storage revenue is about 5 years, so 5 years return on investment. So shifting from 5 to 6, it is not a cannibalization at all, because the new system with the lithium sulfur phosphate systems with the current utilization case that, let's say, 1.5 cycle per day, that's the highest utilization rate for the storage. It gives more than 15 years lifetime of the storage. If you're comparing it with a gas unit, a gas engine, gas motor, you also need to completely overhaul the gas motor after 15 years. So this is a public misunderstanding of the whole story.
Any other angles from?
No, I think as the market will grow, we will not have this kind of debates, and it's either cannibalization or not. We need a lot of storage in order to be able to balance the renewables that we put onto the grid. It's a no-brainer.
For balancing, it's
Vital.
more than critical.
Yeah.
It's the best technology we have, so I don't have any doubts about that.
Of course, in every market at the beginning there will be some speculators, but as the market matures and there are more and more players, the rules will be set, and demand and offer will make the rules at the end of the day.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. It's been a privilege to have you here on the panel with me. I hope you enjoyed the session as well, and I hope that everyone has enjoyed being in Bucharest. I was born and raised in Bucharest, so I hope you really liked our city, and you will return soon. So thank you very much once again, and I'm passing to
me.
To you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's give a round of applause. Thank you.